I set off on a mission to determine the most mid-zombies map from each game. The results are shocking. If a game had survival maps, it couldn't be one of those, as they would typically take that spot because their inherent design sort of limits them to a cap of being roughly mid. The games that I consider to have survival-specific maps are Black Ops 2, World War II, and Black Ops 7. I also won't include any ports or remasters within a game for consideration. We are looking at the game's main maps is basically what these rules boil down to in essence. Oh yeah, we also won't include MW3 Zombies as it's just Operation Deadbolt, so there really isn't anything to do with that game in this video. The neat part about this is that the map that I champion as mid may not necessarily fall directly down the middle of my ranking for that game's maps. That may sound weird, but if a game has 5 maps, I am not automatically going to default to the map that I would rank at 3 within that game. I want to use the most mid offering that the game presents to the overall Zombies catalog. If all or most of the maps in a game are really good, then the one that is mid for the video may have to be lower on my in-game ranking. Conversely, if the game has pretty bad maps overall, then the one that is mid may actually be one of the better or the best maps from that game because the game struggled so hard to make any good maps that the one time they got close ended up only being mid. These mid maps are typically not talked about as much. There are some cases where they are very popular, but again, many cases where they aren't. There is still fun to be had in most Zombies maps, so I wanted to highlight some of these maps and include my favorite feature or aspect of each of the mid maps that I put in this video. The lesser played mid maps deserve some time in the sun, so I am going to give it to them. This video should spark some interesting conversations, so let's get to it as we work chronologically through all of the games, starting with World at War. Here we go. World at War, Shi No Numa. So we begin in the swamp of all places. I was between Shi No Numa and Verrucht, but ultimately settled on Shi No Numa because I feel that the map in that era is much more simplistic, despite the addition of the Hellhounds and the Wunderwaffe. The Waff is great, but ultimately gets lost behind the allure of using the Flogger as the effective mode of deleting zombies as you play longer. The Hellhounds are great and become an instant icon of the series, but the gameplay loop of Shi No Numa is not as exciting as Verrucht. I actually do prefer Shi No Numa to Verrucht, but Shi No Numa, despite all of its extra space to explore, feels more empty. Large open spaces that are often unutilized in a game where things generally happen quite slowly leads to this map playing in a less exciting way. Although for me, again, it is more enjoyable compared to Verrucht and the supremely small spaces. So left between these two, I think Shi No Numa is more of a mid-map, and I elevate Verrucht slightly above it for this specific conversation, simply because it's more intense than Shi No Numa, which makes it more engaging in a short match. My favorite part of Shi No Numa is that it started the template for high-round zombies matches and was the staple for it for a long time. I may not be much of a high-rounder, but I can certainly appreciate that aspect of this map. Black Ops 1, Kino der Toten. I know, I probably have some feisty defenders of Kino prepping a paragraph as we speak. I want you to know that you can stop writing that comment now. I love Kino. It is fantastic, but it is the most vanilla map in this game. 5 has the so-called celebrity crew in the Pentagon and feasts on that setting. Ascension introduced full-fledged Easter eggs. Moon has that Easter egg and the ending to it, plus it takes place on the frickin' moon. Call of the Dead is yet again a celebrity cast in a sick location with some amazing wonder weapons. There is also that thing called Shangri-La, which I am not much of a fan of, so it also doesn't fall in the mid-range here just for different reasons. That leaves Kino as the odd man out. Again, I love this map, but in the grand scheme of zombies, it is a rather mild selection. This is a basic layout and a basic setting. A great setting for a zombies map at the time of release, but then you see what comes after that just in Black Ops 1, and the Theater of the Damned becomes less of an interesting location. All of this is to say that while Kino is a great map, especially for the time, it simply has less going on than its competition and lands itself as the mid-map of Black Ops 1 for my selection. This was a tough choice and was the whole reason I kind of rewrote the intro to say that some of these maps that I call mid are incredibly popular. That's Kino in a nutshell. This is a hyper-popular map that fed the zombies craze for a very long time and stoked the flames of a now massive fan base. Or at least formerly massive. It seems a little lower now, but we're still here and we're still breathing. However, that doesn't automatically allow it to escape what it is in the context of this video. And of course, my favorite part is the Thunder Gun. I love you, and unlike many other maps that will be on the list, you don't need more attention, so let's move on. Black Ops 2, So, Black Ops 2 was by far the most difficult game to decide on a mid-map for. This game truly lives on the edges of fantastic and dog shit. Let's eliminate the top ones on either end right away. Transit, you're not mid, you're garbage. Origins, you're not mid, you're amazing. Now we're left with Die Rise, Mob of the Dead, and Buried. Let's take another one off the top and remove Buried, as it's too good to be mid. And now you see the conundrum I am faced with. Do I select Die Rise or Mob of the Dead as the most mid map in this game? This is such a tough choice because I genuinely view these maps on nearly perfect opposite sides of the spectrum. Mob of the Dead is a map that I'd have in my top 15, and Die Rise is a map I would have somewhere in my bottom 15. It doesn't get more divided than this, so either a map is going to get a boost up to mid, or an offensive slide down to mid. This is where I knew I had to exclude survival maps because it would make something like this too easy and too obvious to get around. I'd just select town and move on. But the show must go on, and we have to decide on an option. What I am going to do is select Die Rise as my mid map. The reason I am doing this is because Die Rise is a map that does have plenty wrong, but it also has some good buried within it. For the sake of this video, it balances out closer to mid than any other map within Black Ops 2. It has a great wonder weapon and a unique setting. It can be fun here and there for simply slaying zombies if you're able to trudge through the setup of the map. Who's Who as a new perk is a complete waste of a perk design. If they added some shit that functioned that way in current day zombies, I would actively avoid it and refuse to grab random perks, fearing the risk of getting Who's Who. I might be one of its biggest haters. I can see what they wanted, and I could see some major overhauls making it a rather good perk, but in the state that it's in Die Rise, I want nothing to do with it. Traversing the map is a travesty. Having perks and Pack-a-Punch within the elevators just slows everything down so much when setting up, and there is no upside to it other than simply being different. So all of this balances out to it being a map that I can only enjoy for a time after I suffer through a long and tedious setup process. But after that, it can be fun. That's where I think I can justify this one balancing out to mid for this game. To avoid saying that the Wonder Weapon is my favorite part of all these maps, I am not going to crown this Liquefier as my favorite part of Die Rise. I will instead give this to the free perk Side Egg for completing a Jumping Jacks round with perfect accuracy. The caveat being it could be Who's Who, but it is still great to have such an accessible and fun way to exceed the 4 perk limit of the time. Advanced Warfare, Carrier. I was originally gonna go with Outbreak, but I didn't want to do a bunch of starting maps as those are naturally more simple. Carrier has the Plinko machine and a cool albeit weak wonder weapon. The rest is rather forgettable and leaves it feeling mid. Every time I think about this map, I forget that it had the annoying bomb defusal rounds, but when I remember, I am not pleased to remember it. Just an annoying part of the map. I will say that for the bomb defusal rounds, it's much better than the escorting missions of Infection or cutting off sections of the map like Infection as well. If I had to settle on a favorite aspect, I'll hand it to the Wonder Weapon. It's such a gimmicky wonder weapon, but it really struggles in power just like almost every weapon in this game. However, again, it's so fun to watch and travel as it gets to work. Black Ops 3, Revelations. This is much like Kino in the fact that I do like this map a good bit, but it falls shorter than the other Black Ops 3 offerings. Currently, it is probably my least favorite Black Ops 3 map, but it is still easily in the top half of my overall rankings for maps. This is an instance of my lowest graded map in a game being the mid one because all the maps in the game are above mid in the grand scheme of things. That is why Revelations becomes my choice for the most mid map of the game because it is the closest to that level. This map drips with aura everywhere. The memories of past moments and locations all blended together in this massive but fractured playspace is great. The place that Rev struggles the most is disappointingly with the Easter egg and boss fight. The egg is way too reliant on RNG and has some not so enjoyable steps within it that are also time gated by how good your RNG is to get some of the items you need. The boss fight is a cool arena, but it is the Shadow Man in basically the same format as the Shadow's end interaction. My favorite part of Rev is the visuals and the setting of it. This map is vibrant. It has amazing places that you can call back to older maps that allowed this very map to exist. Yes, it is basically nostalgia the map. But that is what I love about it. It embraces what came before it and wants to honor it. It's a neat concept for a map, and I would like to see a concept like this given another shot at some point. Rex and Furnace may answer that call, unlikely, but only time will tell. This was recorded before details of that map were revealed, so if that aged poorly, my bad, I was just guessing. Yeah, so editor's note, it aged poorly. Infinite Warfare, Attack of the Radioactive Thing. Now, Shovel and Shuffle was certainly an option, but those damn Kung Fu zombies haunt my nightmares enough that I don't think I could consider it above this map, and therefore it stays below, which props attack into the mid slot for this video. Why is it mid? Well, it does have some cool enemies, which is nice. It has a solid layout, and I like the visuals of this map with different color grading and also the greens of the radioactive material. The wonder weapon is cool, but oddly insignificant to the egg, which is unusual. The Easter egg is where attack has some issues. I like me an Easter egg, but this one does have a little too much going on for me to fully love it. I don't mind jotting down a few numbers or a few words as notes, but having to actually use my phone to take pictures of different signs to compare them later and figure out my proper chemical mixture, it's a bit much. Then after going through all of that, you have to fight the boss, which for me has been one I've also struggled to love. It is cool, but some of the mechanics just aren't that fun to deal with. I will say that this has potential to change like Spaceland did for me. I had issues with the aliens fight, but after dozens and dozens of failed attempts, I started to figure it out, and now it is much more fun. The same could happen for attack, but until that day where I might come around to this egg and boss fight more, it will remain mid for this video. What I do love about Attack of the Radioactive Thing, however, is seeing the boss of the map chilling out in the water the entire time you play. The assumption is that you will eventually have to fight the monster, but it looming out there making noises all game adds to that anticipation. It wasn't something we had really seen done this way up to that point, so I enjoy it. Even now, it doesn't really happen much. More often, if we are seeing a boss before we fight it, it's like an inanimate object that later transforms into a living enemy for the fight. Here, it is alive and is waiting for you. World War II, The Shadowed Throne. Now this is a map with some in it. There's like wall weapons, a mystery box, a wonder weapon, an Easter egg, some enemies, a boss fight, a blimp. Yeah, it's got all of that, and it comes together in such an underwhelming package. The Final Reich is a glorious map. Then the rest of World War II honestly falls pretty short and has some downright awful fucking maps. I really only could pick between this and the Frozen Dawn. The Frozen Dawn at least mixed it up with 4 melee wonder weapons, making up parts of the personality of this map and its quest. Plus, its boss fight is quite cool. The Shadowed Throne doesn't have the same attempts at trying different things, and it finds itself being a little more forgettable. A few changes could have actually made the map a lot better. Make more of the steps friendly for a solo player to complete, revamp the boss fight to be, enjoyable, better. As it stands, Shadowed Throne is a map that I want to like, but I forget about it half the time because when I think of World War II zombies, my mind goes to the amazing Final Reich, or it goes to the Tortured Path and Darkest Shore due to the suffering those maps make me go through. Shadowed Throne almost embodies being mid more than any of the other maps I'm talking about for this concept. It is there, but it doesn't stand out from the crowd. It isn't a map you're likely to love or hate. It simply exists. The best part of this map, I will give it to the wonder weapon again. It is fun to use the wonder bus even though it isn't super strong. It could regenerate its own ammo, which is a great addition as a feature for the weapon. Downside was that to balance it, they made it a bit weaker. Regardless, I like it and it's one of the only things I look forward to when going to play this map. The rest leaves me feeling meh. Hey, we're about halfway through, but don't worry, this isn't an ad read. I'm here to remind you to subscribe if you haven't yet, and join my Discord server for chances to play older co-op modes of Call of Duty with myself and others in the future. Check the description for details, and now back to the video. Black Ops 4 is another tough one. I really was between 3 options of Voyage, Tag der Toten, or Blood of the Dead. Tag was quickly eliminated as I think it's better than both of those, so that left me with Blood or Voyage, and I needed to determine which one hit a bigger high to eliminate the other. I ultimately settled on Blood of the Dead to not be my mid map, and the reason for that is despite all of my issues with the Easter egg of this map, it has a great wonder weapon, and if you play it just for pushing rounds with weapons or the wonder weapon and ignore the Easter egg, it can be really damn fun. Voyage has a bunch of good and some bad that mixes together and leaves it in the middle a little bit better, hence it being my mid selection. Let's start with the thing that everyone talks about, the thing everyone dogs on this map over, the layout. Yeah, it ain't great, boss. It ain't great. Definitely a bit of an Icarus moment as Treyarch flew too close to the sun in pursuit of replicating a mob situation where they took a famous location and translated it into a zombies map. Some more creative liberties were in order here to make it less of a rat's nest and have it flow better. There is also another issue that mixes with this being a tighter layout, and that is due to this being a chaos map. All of the Catalyst zombies, the Stokers, and the Blightfathers really make it tough at times to get into the map. What it does well is the Easter egg, which I personally enjoy, and it is propped up by the shooting of the planet step, which is dope. The best part of this map for me is the boss fight being the Eye of Odin. It looks sick. It has clear dedicated phases to that fight, and it is so fun to do and to topple because it is tough. As much work as it takes to get to the boss fight, I think it is worth it and something more folks should do, because for all of the things that Voyage didn't quite get right, they did make one hell of a boss fight. Cold War. Firebase Z. This is definitely one of the middiest maps to ever mid, ever. Firebase Z is bland visually, it's not an interesting location, it's a fine Easter egg, meh boss fight. The mimics were fine here actually, as they weren't yet spammed or turned into shock mimics. The defense waves are not good, but I do appreciate them trying to do something new and different in this map. This is probably going to be my shortest segment because there really just isn't that much to say about this map. Cold War had me locked in with D Machine and I was all over Firebase Z when it dropped, but it quickly caused me to lose interest within a few weeks of it coming out. The best part is not much of a surprise when I say that it's the Ray K. Take a ray gun, make it an assault rifle with a noob tube, make players shoot the noob tube after it hits the ground and watch the zombies evaporate. Simple, but dang, it is fun to use, albeit a little clunky. It isn't even one of the best wonder weapons in zombies, but it is the best part of this map, which shows you how much I have to reach to pick a favorite part of Firebase Z. Vanguard, the Archon. I actually like the Archon, which is basically begging people to scream at me for being an idiot. Trust me folks, there are numerous better reasons to call me an idiot. The Archon is a decent map buried in a sea of stinky shit. A huge reason that this is the mid map is because it is just Terra Maledicta's layout, retooled to function in a round-based setting. I can still enjoy the map despite that, but the fact that it is just a retooled version of another map from the same game does kind of keep it from standing out above mid. Let's just get to the point and say that there are two things that this map does rather well and one thing that's decent. The decent part is the egg, and putting it in the context of Vanguard makes more sense why it is given any credit. It has actual steps, and when you finish it, there's like an actual ending. The bar was in Bedrock. The shield is one of the things done well, where the Decimator is such an amazing shield. It is stupid powerful and became basically my favorite shield in zombies because of this map. The boss fight is the other thing done well, and it is my favorite part of this map. Fighting the Archon is fun, and the scale of it reminds me of Oryx from Destiny as the large boss floats at the edges of the arena. It is a fun boss fight that I thoroughly enjoy. The rest of the map is pretty forgettable. It is Vanguard after all, which at its best is okay, and at its worst is a stale pile of vomit. Black Ops 6, Shattered Veil. Sorry, I guess my battle against Shattered Veil continues here today. I find that Shattered Veil is only fun here and there. I very quickly grow tired of it because it isn't that engaging. It doesn't really have a hook to draw me in. For two quick examples, I like Terminus because of its boss fight and the general atmosphere. I like Reckoning because of its Easter egg and the split choice boss fight. Shattered Veil just doesn't have a thing that draws me in. It is fine enough, but I wish some parts had more going on. Two that I will specifically call out are the Wonder Weapons and the boss fight. The Raygun Mark II is back and it has variants like Alpha Omega, but for some reason there's only 3 and 2 of them are basically ones we already saw in Alpha Omega. This lacks the draw that I would need to come back to this map for the Wonder Weapons. The boss fight is against a dinosaur, which screams out for me. I've always been a dinosaur lover, but this just doesn't do it for me. The fight is rather simple and I yearn for it to have more engaging mechanics. All props to the dev that apparently built this fight alone. Massive respect for what you accomplished, so know that this isn't about that one dev. I say this because there shouldn't have been a need for one dev to do this alone. They should have had more people working on this to make it better. It really feels like Treyarch didn't even care to try. There are some great secret locations within Shattered Veil, and that makes up the best part of the map for me, especially the worm room with the light puzzle. That is a fantastic addition. All of this comes together to a map that I like, I do, but it doesn't do enough for me, and today it represents Black Ops 6 as its mid map. Black Ops 7, Paradox Junction. This is an interesting one as it plays out quite a lot like Black Ops 3. The maps in Black Ops 7 have been awesome for the most part. Their biggest issue was here, and I still like Paradox Junction. Rex Furnace, again, has not released when I was making this video, so I truly hope that it isn't mid, and I expect it won't be, so I'm sticking to Paradox. We all know it's on Nuketown. I like the visual difference between the two sides of it. That is fun. I do find it surprising that they went smaller than Alpha Omega. It feels like if you're going to return to Nuketown a third time, you should probably expand it and show more than we saw the last time. They didn't really expand the map, but they made an attempt at it by technically doubling the map and having two halves, but they both flow the same. It's just a cosmetic difference, and it changes like the wall weapons and perks. The Blundergat is also randomly thrown in here without an explanation, which could have served the map well to explain how or why it's here. Now we are left to simply go, okay, the Warden trapped us in his prison, Mob is in a prison, so sure, the Blundergat's here. It's a weak connection and not given any context in universe, which remains a pet peeve of mine with this map. Paradox also has an okay boss fight. When done in standard, it is fine for the most part. Doing it in curse, it just gets much worse. The thing that I love about Paradox Junction is its Easter egg. I like going back and forth between past and future to grab things and transfer them between times and use them in different ways to progress. The best part is when you get to the point of doing the kids games. These are fun to engage with and they fit perfectly with the twins being the lead characters of this map. This is something I genuinely look forward to when doing the egg. Overall though, Paradox is a map that will blur into the background as time goes on. I may still like it, but I foresee myself coming back to it less and less in time. And that does it. Those are the most mid maps from each Zombies game, plus my favorite part of each of them. I know not everyone will agree with the selections I made, but remember, 1. The context of this video, and 2, it isn't that serious. In fact, I want to hear what your choices would be for the most mid maps in these games. It is very likely that I'll disagree with certain selections others make, and that's fine, because you probably disagreed with some of mine. It's fun to engage in these discussions because it isn't that serious. We can have fun talking about the mode we love so much, even if we disagree over silly things like the most mid maps. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I look forward to reading those. If you enjoyed, drop a like or sub. Thank you all for watching. Until next time.